It's from Dublin that a new offer from Downing Street is on its way, but no details yet emerged. Our next guest may have some idea. Let's welcome the Transport Secretary, Chris Grayling, to the programme this morning from Westminster. So, what can you tell us about what's happening right now?
Well, look, we're in the middle of a negotiating process. I can't give you a running commentary on the detail, but I remain very optimistic that we will reach an agreement that enables us to move to the next stage of negotiations. And this, of course, is a bridging agreement. It's simply enabling us to broaden the discussions that we're having right now to encompass the future of trade, which is, after all, crucial in deciding the final shape of what happens on the Irish border. I hope there will be free trade and no real change. With
respect, this stock line now, not going to give you a running commentary, isn't good enough. I mean, given what people have seen and the chaos that surrounded this process, I think you and your cabinet colleagues owe people a little more than that. We apparently have 48 hours to come up with something new. I'd like to know, I think a lot of other people would like to know, what you, Theresa May, and the Cabinet and the Brexit Secretary are doing between now and then to change things.
OK, so look, we're clear that we're aiming at four things. We are not going to, we're working very hard to make sure that we have a sensible agreement for the future, that we have a partnership in trading terms, that we continue to work together closely in areas like security, and that we have a smooth transition out of the European Union.
Yes, but with respect, you were doing all those things before. You're giving me the generalities. What we're trying to establish, and the clock it really is ticking here. You know this more than anyone. The clock is ticking here. What is going to be different about the wording of the proposals that you're hopefully going to put forward? Well, OK, let's start with some basics. Is there going to be a new forming of words that you put forward by tomorrow night?
Well, as I said, look, I'm not going to go into the specifics of the discussions taking place.
Well, that's a very simple question, if there's going to be one.
Well, we're very clear. If you take the issue of the Irish border, we are not going to impose a hard border on the divide between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. We're not going to do a deal that undermines the integrity of the United Kingdom. What we are going to do is come up with what we believe will be a strong partnership for the future, one where there is free trade, and actually the whole issue of the free movement of goods across the Irish border becomes superseded by the partnership we've put in place for the future. That negotiation is taking place right now. We're working towards a European Council that happens next week, and you wouldn't expect me to, as we go through the detail of the negotiation, to be giving sort of public announcements line by line of every little step on the way.
I think you're misunderstanding me entirely. The Taoiseach has said himself that he's expecting to hear from Theresa May either today or tomorrow. I mean, is he going to hear from Theresa May today or tomorrow? And if not, are you relaxed about the idea of this deadline just disappearing and we're now talking about next year for the trade talks?
Well, of course, there are discussions taking place all the time, and they will continue up to and including the European Council. Of course that's happening.
So, OK, I'm really confused here. If you can't tell me that Theresa May is going to come up with a new proposal, I mean, that's a bit alarming, isn't it? That means that everything is going to be pushed back into the long grass, possibly until the new year.
No, what I'm telling you is that there are discussions taking place through the week, and I'm confident that they will take us to a point where, by the time we reach the European Council, we will have reached agreement and we will be well placed to go forward and have constructive trade talks. Those discussions are taking place through the week.
How closely is the government now involving the DUP in any wording of any proposals?
Well, we talk to the DUP regularly, of course.
Well, you didn't before, that's the problem. That's why I asked the question.
Well, look, this isn't just about the relations between two parties. It's actually about doing the right thing for the people of Northern Ireland as well. And that is something we're very clearly mindful of as we do all of this. We are not going to do anything that undermines the integrity of the United Kingdom. And it's not just a question of the DUP. As Conservatives, as the Conservative and Unionist Party, we would not do anything that undermined the integrity of the United Kingdom.
Well, if you're seeking to reassure people, maybe you could reassure them, given what happened on Monday and many people's shock, that the negotiations, the discussions had not included the DUP, who then stopped the whole process. Maybe you could reassure people that this time round the DUP will be across the wording in order that they don't scupper it again.
We will be very careful to make sure that as we go through the rest of this process, we are very mindful both of the concerns and interests of people in Northern Ireland, but also the need to maintain the integrity of the United Kingdom. That's absolutely right. Look, at the end of all of this, we are not going to sign up to a deal that is bad for the United Kingdom. When Theresa May said no deal is better than a bad deal, she is and was right.
Well, and Philip Hammond, can we just talk about some of his comments? Because during this process, quite a few people have been surprised by some of the disparities in what you and your cabinet colleagues are saying. Philip Hammond yesterday, the Chancellor, appeared to suggest that if there's no deal, we pay the 50 billion euros anyway. Is he correct?
I think the key point is that both we and the European Union have always said nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. When we reach an agreement at the end of all of this, we would of course expect to fulfil the terms of that agreement.
And if you don't reach an agreement, will you pay anyway?
Well, the whole point is that there won't be an agreement on money until we get to a complete agreement. We've always said, and we say now, nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. This is a staging post on the way to the second phase of talks. We're agreeing principles around what the final settlement will look like. We'll then talk about trade, but nothing is agreed until everything is agreed.
David Davis also gave people a bit of a shock yesterday by informing us that there is no strategic plan, no calculations made about the impact of Brexit. Other politicians were aghast at the notion that your government is not making those plans, not trying to make those calculations. How on earth is that responsible?
Well, I think there's a misunderstanding over these papers. What we've done exhaustively in 800 pages of analysis is look at how European law impacts on different sectors in this country to inform us about the areas we need to sort out in the negotiation. What we're not doing is refighting the referendum campaign all over again of people saying, well, what is the impact of different scenarios of Brexit? Because actually, ultimately, what we are aiming towards is a sensible free trade agreement. And that we are not in the job of the kind of economic forecasting you see from organisations like the Office for Budget Responsibility. Our job is to work out exactly what we need to negotiate, and there are 800 pages of impact analysis of European law on individual sectors of the economy that we've now provided to the Committee of the House of Commons that help us shape that negotiation.
I'm not quite sure what your kind of role was today in being sent out and doing media interviews. I know you're doing the rounds today. This is how this works. But was your job to kind of reassure people that things are going well and everything's in hand? Because I'm not sure that you've done that.
Well, okay. My job, very simply, is to say to people, look, we're in the middle of a negotiation. It's a complex negotiation. Negotiations have ups and downs. We are confident that we'll reach a sensible basis to move to the next stage of talks. Our goal is to secure a sensible free trade partnership for the future with the European Union. Our goal is to absolutely not have any kind of border between Northern and Southern Ireland. We're absolutely clear we will not impose a fixed border between the two. Our goal is to make sure that we do the right thing to support our union of the United Kingdom, of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and our goal is to make sure that we sign up to a deal that is good for Britain. We do not sign up to one that's bad for Britain.
Can I just ask you one more thing, which is that if the middle of next week, when in theory we were supposed to celebrate the trade talks beginning, if that doesn't happen for whatever reason, how much of a calamity is that?
Well, look, I am the optimist. I think we will reach that point.
No, that's fine. I understand you're an optimist, but if it doesn't happen...
We are doing all of the preparations that people would expect us to do for all scenarios. So we're preparing for a no-deal scenario. We're preparing for a free trade agreement. All of the work people would expect us to do is being done.
Chris Grayling, thank you very much for your time this morning. Chris Grayling is the Transport Secretary speaking to us from Westminster this morning.
7 minutes to 8 is the time. Let's talk to